Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Daily Dose with Nurse Alice. I'm your host, Nurse Alice, and we have a fabulous show lined up. It's a show just for you, a show where we're talking about health, wellness, love, lifestyle, and so many other things under the sun. And look here, y'all. I have to tell you, nothing but the best for you guys. I have an amazing guest that's joining us today. Not only is he a wonderful friend, because we chit chat about things, health and wellness, and saving the world and things like that, but he is a board certified acute care nurse practitioner, has decades of experience. He's working as a hospitalist. He is a co-host on a nationally syndicated radio show called Drop the Subject. And as well, he is the brains behind Ask the NP. Everything you're too scared to ask your MD about. So please welcome to the show, my friend and someone who can save your life, Dr. James Simmons. Hey, James.
Well, hello, Nurse. You know what, Alice? I'm going to take you everywhere with me so that you can just introduce me like that everywhere I go. Like, we're just going to roll up into the grocery store and they're going to be like, oh, what do you do? And be like, ask my friend Alice. Thank you. That was awesome.
And I'm going to throw confetti. I'm going to throw confetti as you run.
That was right.
And then we'll have some theme music in the background.
Exactly. Best introduction ever. Thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm super happy to be here.
Great. And so, James, you're in your look, y'all. He has his scrubs on, his stethoscope. He has his glasses on. He's ready. He's on the clock.
Right.
And so, James, I know you're working as a hospitalist. You're seeing a lot on the front lines. Just real quickly before we get started, how are things on the front lines?
It's unfortunately starting to heat up again. I think we all got lulled into a little bit of a sense of complacency about everything. Particularly where I am in Southern California right now, we were doing really well, and then things started to kind of reopen, and then all of a sudden, our numbers aren't huge, but we have seen actually 3 times as many ICU patients because of COVID-19 in just the last 2 weeks. And the numbers are getting worse, and it's starting to feel like it did back in March and April again. And so it's not, as we're certainly, I don't think we should ever panic, right? Never hit the panic button, but we definitely are in a different phase, and we're definitely not out of this at all. It's starting to feel a little weird again.
Okay, so AKA, we are not out of the woods yet, guys. So it's going to be very important that we pay attention and listen to experts like Dr. James and myself, because listen here, we help us help you. That's what we're really trying to do. And that's actually what this show is all about. Now, James, I know, so we're starting to see the numbers come up. We're needing people to take precautions. Then there's this whole other social injustice issue that's happening. And we know that social injustice crosses so many different areas. It's deeply rooted in healthcare, which, y'all, that's a whole nother episode.
Right.
But
ain't it?
A lot is going on.
It is. I was just going to say, it is a whole other episode. I mean, being able to talk about, you go back and forth between, is it appropriate for people to be out and protesting, knowing that they're, sort of violating physical distancing recommendations, but also like systemic racism in the healthcare institution as part of how we got here in the first place. And if now is that spark plug moment in history that we need to keep pushing to fix it, then I think we have to find the balance between keeping people safe and still protesting, because it is so needed. It is so valuable.
Absolutely. Let's push the whole reset button on everything.
Amen.
Everything. So, but a lot of people, they're wanting some normalcy, right? I know that we're still kind of finding our footing. Stats and data are changing every day. But we're trying to have somewhat of a normal life, right? Because people have now been pushed to work from home, if they can work from home, kids out of school. Mm-hmm. Some people have lost their jobs. We're losing loved ones. And so people are looking for that kind of common thread of something that they can still hold on to. And one of the things that's really big for us here in the United States is sports.
Yes.
Right? And so before all this COVID stuff, we were kind of in the full swing of NBA basketball. The All-Star games happened. And then, boom, in March, when it was deemed a world pandemic, everything shut down, including basketball. But NBA players, NBA owners, and the players, along with some health experts and the CDC, have kind of powwowed, and they've decided that we are going to resume the NBA season. And there's a lot that comes with that. So, Dr. James, just first off, What do you think about that?
Whoa.
Resuming sports in a time when we're in this world pandemic.
I am. It is because you said the right word there, Alice. We are still in a global pandemic, right? This is still a pandemic, and I think we still have to recognize that. So, one of the first things I think, and I'm conflicted, right? Because I'm a public health person, and I speak about this often in the media. I practice it in my daily practice, but then also, I am a huge basketball fan, huge. So I do have to say, like the fan in me kicked up the first time I heard this. I was like, oh, they're bringing the season back. And then immediately, my professional training kicked in, and I was like, how are we going to do this? So I think at some point, to your point, because people are craving normalcy so much, and there are a lot of people's economies and a lot of people's incomes that are dependent on sports and bringing sports back. And it's not just the players and the people who are directly associated with the teams, but individuals who like work at Disney World, that we're going to talk about, all of those different things. Our economy is really tied into sports, so we do have to figure out a way to kind of make this work, right? Like, be safe, but then also bring people back to the NBA. I think, especially based off of like how Germany has their basketball bubble right now, and some other places around the world who have been able to do this basketball bubble. I feel like basketball, the NBA in particular, might be one of the few professional sports organizations that might be able to pull this off and still keep everybody safe.
So exactly. So you had so many multiple good points there. And so for y'all who are just as you're tuning in, you're like, what's going on? What's the bubble and all those things? So what happened is the NBA, they actually, like I said, they met with the players, the owners, health professionals, folks from CDC, got together and said, how can we resume basketball? So they came up with this 113-page rule book for health policy and procedures with how to get this game back on the road while adhering to safety measures. Now, it's 113 pages. Who's read the whole 113 pages? I'm just saying. I mean, I read stuff. Oh, well, of course,
No,
Dr. Jane, you're
no,
the
I'm
expert.
kidding.
That's why you're on here as a guest.
I'm kidding. I didn't read. I tried. I skimmed front to back. I didn't actually read all 113 pages, but Alice, I had to do my research for you, of course.
But let's be real about this. 100. Who's reading 113 pages? So I'll be honest. Some of the things that worry me is there might be some really great language in there, but will the folks at Disney World, which is, by the way, where all these games are going to be happening, will we be able to get everybody to truly play the role that is identified in this book? So these players, guys, so you guys are aware that we used to have traveling games in different cities and all that going on. Now, all of the teams, the coaches, the players, their supporting staff, they're all going to Disney World, right? And they're calling this a bubble. Now, I thought like there's a bubble, like those igloos. Like I thought there was like a bubble that you're going
like an actual bubble.
And it's really not. Right. So it's really not a bubble per se. And if you do want to call it, I'm gonna call it a semi-permeable bubble. But what the idea behind that is that they're going to be in an enclosed environment in which participants live there, they practice, and they play all games. So it's kind of like going away to boot camp. Like you go, you gone. You stay there and do all those things. So that could be challenging for players, family members, and it just leaves me concerned. I won't say word. I'm gonna say concerned that although these are adults, right? Are you gonna do what you're supposed to do?
That is.
So tell us a little bit here. Explain to some of the viewers here what's really encompassed in that 113-page document, and where your concerns lie.
Sure, absolutely. You bring up such a valid point about that, and that's what so many of the players have said too. Is what are the actions that happen when some of the players violate the rules? Because essentially, what's going on? They've outlined this in a 4-phase process right now. So the first couple of phases have already happened. Phase 1 was the players had to let the teams know whether or not they were wanting to come. June 25th, they had to sort of sign whether or not they were actually coming. And there's a little bit of a grace period with that. Like Victor Oladipo, for instance, who's a star with the Indiana Pacers, he actually has just recently opted out of that. And that's okay. They're giving players some grace period with this, because starting on June 30th, so just very recently, were these required mandatory like mini camps, if you will. And what a lot of organizations were doing were having their players actually work out at home or work out in facilities with just like one player and one staff member who were already tested and they were known to be negative, and then they would start doing like basketball types of drills. So that's actually kind of going on right now with the anticipation of players starting a 2-week long quarantine. So the only thing they do is go to this practice facility and they go right back home with people who have already been tested and vetted by the NBA, with the anticipation of then the season starting again on July 30th, with everyone having been quarantined. Everyone gets tested at home. And then once they get to Orlando, they actually get 2 additional COVID-19 tests. Everyone has to test negative. They have to then be quarantined for 4 additional days when they literally cannot leave at all, and then they'll start playing the games. It's a lot.
This is a lot. The quarantine time, I know there's the incubation period, the 2 to 14 days, so it makes sense why they want to quarantine players, but just answer me this. So these players have to be physically fit to play the game. What about mentally? Because I know I would be concerned. I'm already worried about and stressed about COVID-19, getting it, not getting it, who's asymptomatic transmission. And then you top that off with social injustice, because I'm just going to call and say what it is. Most of the players are people of color, right? So I've got to be conflicted. How can I focus on the game? All this going on. So what do you say about like the mental health about these players entering into something like this?
I love that you bring that up. You know, I think one of the really smart things that the NBA has done about this is there are only 37 staff members, including, so it's about 15 to 17 players are allowed in a team's bubble, and then another 18 to 20 staff members. That's it. Well, this is far smaller than the staff that is required to run most NBA teams. So you even talk about when teams travel, they will oftentimes travel with up to 50 different individuals. It's not just the players and the coaches. There's, physical trainers and all these other individuals that go along, including mental health professionals. And one of the things that the NBA did, and I'm really, really glad that they did this, is that one of the people determined essential to go with the teams in their bubble and to make up that 37 more or less people that go is a mental health professional. And a lot of that is because, the NBA has been not amazing, but much better than any of the other professional sports in terms of talking about racial justice issues, in terms of talking about mental health, in terms of talking about depression and suicide. Kevin Love, who is one of the stars of the NBA, he currently plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were not invited to the bubble. By the way, they were one of the 8 teams that didn't get invited because of their record. But he's been very outspoken about feeling suicidal in the past, about depression. So the league itself talks about mental health in a really, really important, fantastic way. And I love that one of those essential people that they said has to come to this bubble with every team is at least one mental health professional. Because these guys are going to be alone, right? Away from their families, away from their kids, away from their neighborhoods, away from social justice causes. They're going to need individuals that they can talk to about all of this besides their teammates.
Absolutely. And that's just on top of the anxiety and stress that comes with trying to win a game. So,
right.
These fellas are going to this is definitely going to be a challenging season for players. Now, so you talked about the people who are deemed essential. Now, I'm just going to say this, and I just have to say it because I know that they're traveling. There are physicians and other, therapists that will be available to them for their medical needs. I have some concerns.
Okay.
We know that the NFL has not always been forthcoming when it's come to concussions and issues and, health needs of its players. We know that, last basketball seasons in the playoffs, we knew that doctor should have said, Kevin Durant, you shouldn't play. We knew, but there are some financial incentives in the game because let's face it, NBA, we love the game, we want normalcy, but there's money involved. Right. So what are your thoughts on, the financial incentives? Are players going to be penalized for not playing? Can they be excused? And what are your thoughts on the motivation of being forthcoming with, yes, I have a cough, yes, I'm feeling fatigued, and all those things because I'm sure the players are going to have to report some of those things. And if their livelihood depends on money, do you think that could skew whether a player is forthcoming with reporting their symptoms?
You bring up such an amazing point, Alice, about whether or not these players are going to be forthcoming. There are individuals who are actually with the teams and the medical staff. Now, some of the teams are going to share medical staff. So once they're in the bubble, it will actually feel sort of like the real world to a lot of these individuals, because they're going to be able to move different courts and whatever. There are some medical staff that the NBA has determined are going to be crucial to examining players and checking off their symptoms. And so there's going to be like a symptom check every day, kind of like when we come to work, right? They ask us to check our symptoms. We get our temperature scanned. There's thermal scanners. All of those things are going to be set up for the players. Now, you know, and I know that some players may be more incented to not talk about the loss of taste or smell. You know, they started to have, you know, a cough or a little bit of shortness of breath, but there's going to be a lot of medical staff around. I think the larger issue here is, though, you know, and you brought this up about some other sports are less transparent about this. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, is fantastic about, from the beginning, saying this is about protecting players, their families, and the communities that those players represent. And so the culture in any organization is really a top down thing, right? And so he's saying from the top down, if you're sick, if you don't want to get your family sick, if you don't want to come, don't come. It's okay. And he's really urging, you know, NBA teams are their own little mini organizations. So a lot of what he says has to be agreed upon by the NBA owners. He can't mandate all teams to be one way or another, but he's very much encouraging teams to say, please continue to pay your players, regardless of whether or not they want to come. The NBA is already set to lose more than $1 billion on this season. So Adam Silver's sort of like, you know what, let's make sure that this is the best environment for the players. We give the fans the best that they can do, and bottom line, keep everybody safe.
That's really what it's about, keeping players safe. Now, I have some other questions, and also, so I'm interested to know, and because I'm not sure if these are mentioned in their 113-page document, but also would like to know from your expert opinion, because some of the concerns that I have as the players are, you know, being safe and playing this game is they're going to be running up and down the court. I don't anticipate they'll be wearing a mask. True?
Correct.
False?
No masks.
No masks. Okay. Dr. James, they're going to be dribbling the ball, trying to steal the ball, trying to alley-oop and dunk and all that stuff. Are they disinfecting the ball or swapping it out between plays? Do we know?
Very good question. So that is actually outlined in the 113-page manual. There's not a lot of this 113-page manual, by the way, is sort of up for, I won't say interpretation, but they sort of hedge their bets a little bit. They sort of say, well, this is what we think is going to work, but if it doesn't work, we have the room to change whatever we need to change. So what's very interesting is that part of the reason they're doing this such a really intense quarantine early and then requiring people to have so much testing is so that once they get into the game and the practice environment, once they're in the bubble, they want it to feel as natural as possible. So they don't want to have to stop plays to wipe the ball. They know that guys are going to be setting screens, right? Basketball is a very, very much a contact sport. There's going to be sweat and you know, particles all over each other, but they want to make sure that before anyone even gets into that environment, that they have been tested, that they know that they are negative. So, you know, I think some of those things, Alice, are going to change often throughout the season, right? They're going to be like, we're going to switch out balls every, you know, 5 minutes and we're going to wipe them down or, you know, whatever. I think a lot of it they've left open to interpretation because, you know, frankly, you know, we've never done this before. We've never tried to play basketball in the middle of a global pandemic.
Listen, my lifetime, I've not been in a world pandemic. And I'm pretty sure it may be outlined, but if not, I'm going to go ahead and say, I hope that they have hand sanitizer. They hope they have bathroom breaks where players can wash their hands. I know they're not showering at this stadium. They're going to have to go back to their rooms to shower. So I do believe that there are certain precautions in place. So I'm looking forward to the start of this and seeing how it goes. I'm pretty hopeful that someone's going to intervene if we have players that do come positive, because I know that you might be able to control the players, but the people who service the hotel and stuff, you know, there's potential for things to happen. So I'm looking forward to it. Just real quickly, they're gonna start it. Do you think they'll be able to finish?
I do. I think it's actually, I think once they start, they will finish. I think what the thing is at a bigger risk is, will they actually start? And so, you know, the games are supposed to start July 30th. I think that's the big key. I think the next couple of weeks will be really telling as to whether or not, because, you know, we're up to, you know, most recent report where more than 25 players have tested positive for COVID-19. So, and those are all players that wanted to play in the bubble. So I think these next few weeks when the players are supposed to be in quarantine and they're getting tested every day, that will really be key.
Okay, guys, you heard it. Dr. James himself, he's the expert here. I'm your host, Nurse Alice, and this has been an amazing starting conversation because we know we could talk about this for
For
hours and
sure.
for days. But I'm glad, Dr. James, thank you so much for
My
joining
pleasure.
us. We really, really appreciate it. Just real quick, can you tell our viewers where they can find
Yeah,
you?
of course. All over social media at Ask the NP. NP is a nurse practitioner at Ask the NP.
Okay, wonderful. James, I
I
love you.
love
Thank
you
you so
too,
much for
Alice.
being
Thanks
here.
for
You
having
guys,
me.
prepare to see Dr. James frequently because that's my boo. That's my friend. And, you know, he's an expert and I would definitely let him take care of me.
Oh,
And so to everyone else who is watching, thank you so much for tuning in to Daily Dose with Nurse Alice. You know, we're going to bring this to you as often as we can. We're going to talk about health, wellness, love, lifestyle, anything under the sun. So please make sure that you go to YouTube. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow. I'm on social media at Ask Nurse Alice. And guys, this has been amazing. Please, please, please make sure that you are being safe. Take care of one another. Make good choices. And until next time, guys, live well, my friends.